Hello and welcome back to Podcast with a K. I'm your host Karla with a K, and we're back in the studio finally on this fine Sunday evening. You are listening to WECS 90.1 FM. Thank you for being here. Make sure you're following the show on Twitter at Podcast by K, spelled PODKASTXK, if you want to hear that. And if you'd like to participate in the live conversation, we're also live on Twitch at twitch.tv/KarlyGirl, spelled KarlyGirl. Welcome back. It has been a longer than previously expected time since I've been in the studio in person. Got a lot lined up for you. We've got a lot coming soon to you. If you've been listening to the station, you'll notice that our student shows are back, our community members are back, and there's only more to come. Very excited to be here. Very excited to have the station back up and running. And stay tuned for new nonsense and new guests, as we used to say, and that means guests in person. If you've checked out our website at wecsfm.com, you'll also see we now have a live video feed to go along with our players. So if you want, you can watch there. If not, feel free to listen along here from wherever it is that you are. And if you are in Twitch, hello, welcome, hi. And let's, without further ado, get started. So first up and foremost, my current obsession has been Manifest. Manifest is a show that is, I think, only going to be on Netflix from here on out. But very exciting stuff. Thank you, Hammy, on Twitch for the 10 gifted subs. Very kind, very heartwarming. Did not have to do that, but thank you. Yes, Manifest. It has been consuming my mind. I've been binge watching it. Every moment that I have, I've been watching it because new season's coming out, and I wanted to be caught up. It won't be on TV anymore, I don't believe. I think it'll just be on Netflix. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, I want to do this as no spoilers as possible, but like, please understand that this is the entirety of my thought process, alright? It's just been Manifest and like theories, because every single thing that happens, every episode that comes up was something new. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of the course that Supernatural ran. If you've listened to the show for a while, you know that I have had a long-term obsession, or I had a long-term obsession with Supernatural, in a similar way as Manifest, in which I was like, oh, new season, I have to catch up before it comes out, in which I binge watched it. But yes, so basically, Manifest starts off with um, Manifest starts off with a plane that disappears out of nowhere. It's a missing flight. Everyone's like, yo, where'd they go, dude? It's been like 5 years, it's over. Bam. Plane is back, but for the passengers, it's no time passed. For them, like, they landed business as usual. And I'm like, yo, what you mean it's been 5 years? It's literally been like not even 5 hours. Excuse me? But of course, for everyone else, they're like, no, bro, you guys were like literally gone forever. Maybe this is gonna be spoilery. If you are watching Manifest, or if you plan on watching it and you don't want spoilers, plan to come back in like I don't know, like 20 minutes. I need to go on a rant right here. But um so that's like the start of it, right? That's the premise of it. And as the show goes on, the people who were on the plane, the passengers, all have developed this, like, they call them callings, right? Um in which they will like hear voices or see visions, and uh it's just uncertain. It's unsure why. And at first, everyone's like, bro, that's crazy. I'm going insane. But then they start, like, every now and then listening to them. And they tend to lead to the greater good. Like, in the first episode or two, like, they find some girls that had been kidnapped. They, like, stop robbers. Like, because one of the main characters is a cop. And so, like, they're using it to their advantage to like stop criminals and like save people and help them, right? But as it goes on, these callings get harder to follow, the mysteries, the little like puzzles, I guess, of thought get harder to solve, and the things that they're doing in order to, um, I guess, respond to the callings get more questionable because the end game is more and more unclear. And as the show goes on, there's new characters. Find out that there's other people who this has happened to that weren't on the plane, other people in this like time frame, and other people in history. Um, and so it's really cool and really true because like you never know where it's going, and like you're always like, well, what's the point of these callings? Like, why do they have these powers? Why are they expected to follow them? Like, does something happen if they ignore it? And as the show goes on, they realize that like, yeah, they have to respond to the callings. Otherwise, like the amount of time that they were gone, so for these passengers it's been 5 years. The amount of time that they've been gone is the amount of time that they have left. And they find this out through other people who had disappeared and come back in some way, shape, or form, right? And so, like, the theory that they come to accept is that they originally did die on the plane, but were resurrected. Which, like, okay, I don't understand why that's so much of a theory. Like, that's, I would have assumed that's what happened. Like, why were you gone? Why are you back? Hello, explain. Um, but the thing about them only having a certain amount of time to live is also disproven because someone else that disappeared, uh, essentially like they see this man be resurrected in front of their very eyes, and they assume that it's because he followed his calling and like listened to the visions and the voices and did like the thing that he was expected to do. And because he did that, he was, given a second chance. Basically like the theory is that it's about redemption. It's an arc about like that. And so I don't know. At some point it takes a more religious turn, which is why I said it reminded me of Supernatural, because Supernatural starts off about like just monsters in general, and then they kind of like narrow in on like demons, and then the actual devil, and then actual well, angels and actual God. And it's like, all right, like cool, I guess. We all know of them, whether it's because you believe in this religion yourself or because general interest in other mythologies. um but in the same way, Manifest takes that turn, and I guess it could have been expected from the start because there's like a lady, and she always quotes this one Bible verse that's like, all things come together for good. I don't know. I didn't expect it to take that turn because like at some point, like Noah, like from Noah's Ark, is like mentioned a lot and involved a lot, and then when they think that they're like resurrected, they think that that had something to do with it as well. Like they think like it's like God, like capital God God. But like the thing is, there's another season coming, so these questions aren't ever really answered. And so my confusion comes in at like, well, okay, I understand that it did like follow this train of thought because like maybe the Bible verse being repeated a lot was foreshadowing, but the thing is it was like that a lot in the beginning, and then they fell off from that verse, right? It just kind of became about like, gotta follow the callings, like do they trust each other, kind of like just their personal relationships and dynamics, more so than about like the bigger picture. But like honestly, if it hadn't been for them going specifically into like the Noah's Ark thing, like I think going into a part of Revelations, like if it hadn't been for that, I would have completely forgot about the lady with the Bible verse. Like it was just I don't know. I had completely forgotten it. I don't know why this turned into a review on Manifest. This is now a review on Manifest. Um oh, but my original like thought process here was like not even about this. It was just kind of like content based on mythologies and specifically on religions is super super cool. Like I know some people think it's like I guess disrespectful in a way, like and offensive to people who like internalize these beliefs. I love it. Like I love seeing what people make out of these things because like if you think about it, like everyone has some sort of belief system, even if like whether that's like, you're Christian or like you don't believe in anything. Like, that is your belief, whether or not you like think of something else. And I've talked about it on the show. I was raised Catholic. I am of the mindset that like I would sure hope that there is a capital God God. Otherwise, like, what are we all doing and for what? Like, my internal question is always like of free will versus fate. Like, how much is predetermined? How much is like put in our path? How much do we have control over? Um, but in general, as a whole, like, I would like to believe that there are greater forces at play, because otherwise, like, that means everything is random and chaotic and very scary and super terrifying. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a different energy. But I don't mind when things are based on that. Like, I was obsessed with Supernatural. I like, they made the character that they made out of the devil and God and etc. And also like Lucifer, which is another TV show that sadly ended. I haven't finished watching the last season either, so no spoilers there. I'm only like 2 or 3 episodes in, hammy. But yeah, so like whatever. Like the point is like I like these different perspectives on this type of content because it's like some like again like I said, some people take issue with like Lucifer kind of justifying the devil or humanizing him or like whatever when he's supposed to be like the agent of evil and chaos or something or whatever. And it's like, just because the show says this does not mean that like people need to sympathize with the entity that could be the devil, right? Like in Spanish, the expression is tienes que tener criterio. And I think in English, the best way I could say that would be like, you have to view things like not critically, like I guess that's the direct translation, but like kind of like with your own perspective, like with your own thoughts and consideration. Um, Like you don't need to just blindly accept anything, whether that's like you read the Bible or you watch Supernatural. Like, you have to make your own choices and opinions and decisions on what you're gonna believe and how you're going to go about it. But I don't know. Like I like seeing different perspectives on it, especially because like I personally have not ever fully read the Bible. I know like the general stories, right? I know like what I've learned from, you know, like my parents or media or movies or books or songs or church or whatever. But like at the end of the day, like I'm still of the mindset like the Bible was written by people, right? So like why not take that and make something out of it, right? Like what is the problem with people taking like one story and then like turning it into another story? Like it is a collection of stories. Like we choose what we believe. And why shouldn't that extend to, popular media? Peacekin Chat says, religion and spirituality are so ingrained into society and modern day culture that it would be weird to not explore its complexities. Exactly, right? Like why should we just take something at face value? Like, it's super interesting to delve into like what else could be a thing. And the thing is, we kind of do that without deliberately meaning to, because it's one thing to be like, um, oh well, you can't talk about like God and the devil and angels and demons, but then you turn around and be like, oh yeah, like wow, the sloth meme is my spirit animal. Well, that spirit animal belongs to another uh I guess, culture and religion and mythology, right? Just because it's not yours does not mean it's not somebody else's, right? And even if it's not religion, like, would that mean that we can't uh make content based on the chupacabra or the Loch Ness monster because it's not where we're from, it's not our culture? Like, no, dude, like everything is up for critique and um what am I trying to say here? Like like you can make content out of anything. You can take inspiration from anything. You can critique anything. Like that's the cool thing about being a person with cognitive thought and opinions. Like you can make anything out of anything. And like specifically with more so Supernatural than Lucifer, because Lucifer is very much centric on like this is the devil and his perspective on whatever, right? But with Supernatural, it was people who were impacted directly by the characters that were God and the devil and angels and demons, etc., right? And what I liked about it was that it explored kind of like the thoughts that I think everyone at some point goes through. Most of them starting with like why, like how can this be allowed to happen? Like why is this happening? And I always find it interesting that the perspective that a lot of these types of shows um decide to take specifically again I'm talking about Supernatural and Lucifer because those are the ones that I have kept up with and watched and like that I can comfortably say that I know what I'm talking about. Like I always find it interesting that a lot of this type of stuff, and there's other movies, but whatever. Let's not get sidetracked. Let's pick a topic, right? Like I've always thought it was interesting that they take the perspective that like the reason that things do get chaotic and don't make sense, and it seems like um no one's listening is because there isn't. So like in theory, in concept, God is supposed to be omniscient and omnipotent, but does that mean that he is always listening or always there or always present? Like he could be, he has the ability to, but what if he simply decided, yo, I'm gonna like go check out Pluto or something? Like Earth can hang out for a few days. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's it's a perspective that's taken a lot, and I always find it super intriguing to delve into like that's the justification that a lot of people end up leaning towards. And on one hand, like that's a scary thought, you know? It's kind of like when you're a kid and it's like your parents need to make like an emergency trip to the store, or like no, when you're at the store and they leave you at the cash register because like they need to go grab like they forgot to grab milk or something. It's like you're just sitting there waiting and like you know things will probably be okay. You know someone's in charge of the situation, but for the time being, you are alone and surrounded by other people who are also alone and in their own world, right? Because like everyone's going through their own thing, and like that what's the word sonder? It's like the realization that everyone else is going through their own like complex train of thought and path of life. Like that's crazy. Like that's crazy to think about. Like I think that's the best example I have for why uh why these types of stories tend to lean in that way. And like it doesn't just of course end with religion, right? There's also like creatures and cryptids, um, such as like the chupacabra, the Loch Ness monster, or if you choose to believe of like angels and demons as creatures rather than as like because they're not human, I guess, right? Rather than as entities or something. And like a lot of it's like localized and cultural, and there's other like more broader scopes like uh, I guess ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. But like, I mean, if those are up for grabs too, right? Like, I mean, I learned about most cryptids through Pop Tropica, and like Pop Tropica, if you don't know, was like it exists again, and I have thoughts on Pop Tropica, right? But Pop Tropica's website, poptropica.com, in which they had various different little islands, I guess, that you could win. Like you had to like it was kind of like a side scroller, right? Like, so you'd go and you talk to people, collect items, give the items to the right people, like play the little mini games in the game. Like, there was one, oh, so, well, the Cryptids Island that I'm specifically talking about, like, you're helping some cryptozoologist with their collection of facts, etc. And so you travel to like the different places that they're from, and you try to collect evidence on the fact that they exist. But in doing so, you learn about them, right? So this is how I learned about like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster and the chupacabra and the Jersey Devil. Dude, the Jersey Devil is terrifying. Um, but yeah, like things like that. And then Pop Tropic also had like Greek mythology island where you learn about like different Greco-Roman gods. Um, again, like through these little puzzles and stuff. And so like if a kid's game can show you about this type of stuff, like why not? Like, no one's really taking up issue with Pop Tropica for doing that, so why take issue with movies and TV shows doing that? And especially because, like, you have here, like, cryptids, which are just kind of creatures from other cultures, but then you also have the Greek mythology aspect of it, and, like, in all, like, by definition, I guess, anyone could constitute any religion as mythology, right? Things that have no, like, tangible proof. Like, that's also kind of what Manifest touched on. It's like the concept of miracles and would it be possible to like harness the power from something miraculous and recreating it, and being able to use it yourself to like create your own miracles basically. But I don't know. I think it's cool to like read into it and learn into it because this is also how you learn about other beliefs and stuff. So like even if it's not something that like fits your personal perspective, like this is a good way to learn about other things. Um, because of course if even if Christianity is a massive religion, like there's some stuff that other people don't know about. Like I don't think I knew the phrase the Bible verse, the all things come together for good, but now like it stays in my head. Or like what I also learned was that the traditional story that a lot of people learn about Noah's Ark is that humanity was in shambles, and God was like, "Yo, Noah, like you gotta save yourself, man. Like you're a good family man. You gotta try to get the people to see the truth." And Noah was like, "Yo, people, you gotta see the truth." And the people were like, "No, Noah, screw you, dude." And so Noah was like, "Well, whatever. I'm getting on my boat." And that's why Noah and his family were saved. But there's an alternative version of the story of Noah's Ark, which is that Noah was upset that the people weren't listening to him and that the people were so awful and terrible and evil and selfish that vindictively Noah sought after God to bring upon the flood to cleanse humanity. So in that version of it, and again, this one I learned in Manifest. In that version of Noah's Ark, Noah's the one that called for the flood. So Noah was like, in a sense, like an agent of an apocalypse, which is crazy because that's not the story that we all learn. Well, I don't think that's the story we all learn. But because of this, now I know that there's that version of Noah. Like that's crazy and that's cool. Like that's how I learned about it. um But yeah, so Manifest has been like one concept in my mind, and it's really fitting that I decided to watch it at this time because I finished it like right around this time. And then there was also a podcast that I was listening to called Bridgewater, which ironically enough features Misha Collins, who was an actor from Supernatural. It all just really comes full circle. And that's one of the things that haunts me about this world and this experience in life is that things come full circle in this way. But Bridgewater essentially is a story podcast about the Bridgewater Triangle. And because of this podcast, I learned that the Bridgewater Triangle is a real live actual place. So this podcast is about a guy who in his childhood his dad went missing, presumed dead, and now as an adult is faced with um the stories and the strange occurrences that happen in the Bridgewater Triangle. I won't get too much into that one because then we'll end up just having podcast review. Maybe I'll get into it later. But first, I want to talk about the actual Bridgewater Triangle, right? And so, anyway, because of this podcast, I looked it up. I was trying to find like a link for the podcast because I was trying to send it to somebody, and instead, I found that the Bridgewater Triangle is real. Hello, Abby in chat. And so here's what the Bridgewater Triangle is. All right, so the Bridgewater Triangle is a 200-ish square mile uh area, triangular in southeastern Massachusetts. And this is particularly of interest to me because I am in Connecticut, fairly close to Massachusetts. In fact, when I went to see a concert, turns out, unknowingly, we drove past this area, which is insane because I didn't even know where I was or what was going on. Or not past it, but like we drove fairly near it. Um, but basically, it's kind of one of those like hotspots for paranormal activity. There have been reported UFO sightings, poltergeist, orbs of light, random fires, basilisks, which are giant snakes, thunderbirds, which are just like massive scaly birds, and puckwudgies. And so, as with most things, as with most paranormal hotspot type places, I'm of two minds because okay, on the one hand, it's kind of just like confirmation bias where people are like, "Oh, this place is totally haunted." And you're like, "Wow, I heard a weird noise. It's totally haunted." Yeah, that's because it's totally haunted. Ah, okay. So it is haunted, right? Like it's just kind of like it's not necessarily proof, but because you go in thinking that it is what it is, and then someone else is like, "Yo, it is what it is." And you're like, "Dang, I guess it is what it is." That's what could be happening. But the reason that this one in particular caught my interest is because puckwudgies are creatures from Algonquin folklore, which is an indigenous tribe, and there is also belief of a Wampanoag curse in this area because something was taken from the tribe and they, uh this I think it was a belt, and this led to that paranormal unrest, as tends to be the story with the concepts of uh indigenous well, of wrongdoings that befell upon the indigenous people. Um, but because of that, I'm like more ready to believe that this is something. Because again, like the same way that I would be quicker to believe something that someone was like, oh yes, an angel appeared and whatever, because that's the religion that I've chosen to accept. Like, of course, it would make sense that in Algonquin folklore, if these are creatures that they're like, ah, yes, these are things that exist. Like, if it's a group of people with a common belief, so now I'm intrigued. I'm like, okay, tell me more. Like, why is that your like y'all's beliefs? And so puckwudgies basically are these like little something in between in looks and attitude, similar to like gnomes and fairies, where they're not like necessarily malicious, but they're not benevolent either. Like they're just really dangerous tricksters that'll like lure people into not great situations. But so these are all like things that have been reported in this area. And there's also in the Freetown Fall River State Forest a place called Profile Rock in which it is believed that there is a ghost. And there's also like in the forest been like a lot of people who have like read into the mythology and stuff, and like there's a lot of like cult activity, which does not help with the reputation of this place, right? But like my question is always like why, right? Like why is this how did this get to be as big as it is? Like are people just like that ready or that like willing, or maybe that like how would I explain, like people are just like that, not desperate, but like people like want to have something to believe is happening. Like how did this escalate to the point at which it is? Because it also centers kind of around a different part of this in the Bridgewater Triangle. There's a place called the Hockomock Swamp, and it's also nicknamed the Devil's Swamp because, this is a paranormal hotspot, so naturally the devil comes into play. And so like you have aspects of different like beliefs and mythologies here, which I think is super interesting because why, Um, and the fact that there's such a combination of like inexplicable occurrences is why I'm like, dang, now I kind of feel like I have to go to the Bridgewater Triangle. Um, like not to be like that person in a horror movie, but like I kind of want to see it for myself. And it's kind of like the same thing as if y'all have ever seen BuzzFeed Unsolved, like they're just like, ah, yes, there are ghosts here, and they're like, okay, so prove it. So like they send two guys with a camera, and they're like, all right, so prove it. And to this day, right, there's been some weird stuff, never any concrete evidence because they're still seeking, but it's just kind of like process of elimination, right? Like, is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen? I don't know. Let's find out. Um, but oh, so the Hockomock Swamp thing, being called the Devil's Swamp, made me think of the Devil's Tramping Ground in North Carolina, which is something that I grew up learning about because, as I've mentioned countless times, I am from North Carolina, and it's basically this campsite in which nothing grows, right? And the scientific explanation is that it is a salt lick, which is a naturally occurring area in which like salt deposits are higher, so like things just don't grow. Um, but what's weird about it is that like people with like dogs or like pets or animals, like they won't go near it and they'll like bark at it and they'll howl for like no real reason at all. Um, but there's also like cases of like people like taking objects and placing them in it and they'll disappear again inexplicably overnight. And so like that's something that I grew up learning about, and so I was like, dang, that's crazy. And so like you've heard the scientific explanation. The not scientific explanation is that like it has to do with that's like where the devil pulls up to like stomp around. um, but again, I'm always so intrigued in like knowing whether or not people believe in things and why. Like where does this come from? You know? Like why this in particular? How is this a theory that you came to like know and accept? And another like interesting coincidence with this and the Bridgewater Triangle was that like at the Devil's Tramping Ground. It's believed to be a place where like the veil between like I guess realms, for want of a better word, is thinner. And so it's believed that that's why like this is a paranormal hotspot, right? It's because that veil is less restrictive, and so there's crossover between realities. Um, and in the Bridgewater Triangle as well, it's believed that that's a space in which like people can communicate with the dead or other forces or other creatures. But that's the part that to me is terrifying because I'm more of the mindset that like if something is in a different realm, right? You don't know what it is you're contacting. You don't know what it is that you're talking to. You don't know like you don't know what's going on. Um and so it's like again, why would you seek that out? Because to me it's more so just like if I encounter it, like dang, that's crazy. Can't believe that happened. But it's not like again, like I'm gonna go seeking it out, which I know I just said that I am intrigued in the concept of going to the Bridgewater Triangle just to see what's up. But like if I go, again, it's more with the mindset like I wonder if something will happen rather than I'm gonna go find a ghost. You know? Because if I did encounter it and like this same question is what I asked others is like, what would you do if you were faced with one of these inexplicable paranormal creatures or situations? Like everyone has like a concept of like, oh yeah, oh I like I'd be able to face it, or like, oh no, I would totally freak out. But like, what would you do? Like you're telling me how you would feel, but what would you do? Like, how do you deal with it, and how do you keep something from like following you, or like coming back with you? Like to me, that's terrifying. And this like concept of the veil is also present in Manifest, because like where did the plane go while it was gone, right? Like there's multiple situations in which something disappeared inexplicably, but where do things that disappear go? Like they can't just cease to exist. It's not like they're being like obliterated. Where do they go? What is their presence? Like what follows from here? I don't know. I don't know. This like again, like I said, this has been like uh what's been consuming my thoughts most recently because that's been what I've been looking into. Um I don't know. To me it's just it's super super interesting, and I always like to know like what other people believe, and I believe in on the podcast before we've also had my one of my former roommates talk about her experiences with jinn. And jinn, if you don't know, are present in like, well, she's Muslim. I don't know if it's specific to Muslim culture or a certain region, but jinn are similarly actually to like pukwudgies, etc. It's not that they're malicious or benevolent; they just are, but they can be either or. And you know, most usually things that interact that people fear or like have these stories to tell are like when things go south. And so like to me, I kind of view all of this kind of like from an outsider perspective. Like it's not that I necessarily believe that it does or doesn't exist, but I'm open to the concept of it existing. If that makes sense. Like it's not like I'm sitting here thinking, oh yes, I'm in a room full of ghosts. But if a ghost were to appear, like I don't know what I'd do. I would probably freak out. I don't want to talk to it. I don't think. Like no, let me keep my version of reality. You know. But at the same time, I'm sitting here saying like, ah, yes, you know, I believe in my religion and I believe in like floating sky dad answering prayers and causing miracles. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's a weird like line to toe. But what she had told me was that she personally had experiences with jinn. And again, I think she mentioned it on the podcast before. Like, I think she's told the story here. But like, if you weren't here, if you weren't listening, or if you weren't in the chat that night, basically she and her mother believed that in their house was a jinn for whatever reason. And the one story I remember is she said that she was like doing something and she just like felt like something was watching her, like there was a presence in the room with her, and she just like could not disregard it at all. And so what her mom had told her was to like very like deliberately and determinedly say like this is my space. I'm not leaving. Please leave me alone. Like this is where I am. This is what I'm doing. And like supposedly like this this thing would like, get the message and like, dip. But if that doesn't work, like if it's intent on um being more of a nuisance than not, I guess, she decided that like what she had to do was just kind of like pray it away, if that makes sense. So like until like her mom went home, or until like she felt like the presence not be there anymore, like that's what she did. And to me that's like bizarre because that's not something that I have ever faced. That's not something that I grew up believing. And so then my like thought process is just like, well, how many things are there out there that we're just unaware of? Not because like no one knows about them, but just because they're not the ones that we've encountered, right? Like, how come certain entities, certain creatures, certain whatever, like, how come those only exist in certain mythologies, and how come they only manifest to those that believe in them? Because then from there, I jumped to um, tulpas, and tulpas are something I learned about in a variety of like shows and things. I think they're mentioned in Supernatural, but also in the X-Files. I think tulpas are in the X-Files, but they're basically like creatures of thought in which like they only exist as long as people believe in them. And I don't remember which uh religion or culture or mythology. I think it's Indian? Question mark? Don't quote me on that. But like um both shows approached it in a similar way, which is that, well, no, because in one of them it was deliberate. I think in the X-Files it's deliberate, and in Supernatural it was accidental. But like it's basically like somebody came up with a concept and they like pushed it to so many people, and so many people believed in it that it like manifested it to actually exist. And again, that is terrifying because that would lead to believe that then these things only exist in certain regions or certain areas because that's where there are a lot of people that believe in it. But it would be so hard to get everyone to just all of a sudden decide, well, like, I know you grew up with the belief that this thing, this entity is real, but I need you to not because now it's a problem. Like, now it's a nuisance. Because then, like, the fear of it existing would keep it in people's beliefs, which would mean it would continue to exist, right? Um, and that, again, is a very scary concept because what on earth? But again, I think this all goes back to my original point, which is like it's really cool that there's again, I like that there's content based on different beliefs, etc. Because otherwise, I would have never known about tulpas. Like, had I never watched that episode of X-Files, had I never watched that episode of Supernatural, I wouldn't have known that this was a potential explanation for the inexplicable. Um, and again, that's not to say that I do or don't believe in it, but I just I find it super, super interesting that there are people that fully believe in said thing. Um, and it's also really interesting to see like where people draw the line, like again, specifically between like religion and other mythologies, like what people expect to be real. Because I mean, if this is to be like a legit thing, then like with the Bible, I think the scariest thing would be Revelations, right? With the apocalypse. And I don't fully know that story too well, right? Like I know that there's the four horsemen. I know that they bring about like a certain like thing, like there's famine, there's plague, etc. Um, and then like a bunch of creatures and stuff. But like, has there are there dragons mentioned? Does anyone know this? But like, does that mean then that these are real? And like again, why is that where I would draw the line? Like why wouldn't I believe in thunderbirds and basilisks, etc.? And like basilisks, I only even knew about because of Harry Potter. I learned about like UFOs and like the sightings in New Mexico and Area 51, etc. from an episode of Arthur, because I think Buster like was obsessed with them, and then one of the professors or something, professors, teachers, somebody from the school, like was planning on going to New Mexico to try to see some aliens. But yeah, again, I'm a fan of media. I'm a fan of learning through media. There's so much that you can pick up from others because of it. Um, but yeah, that's been what's been consuming my thoughts for the past month or so. I don't know how long I've been. Well, okay, so if there's 10 episodes of Bridgewater, that means it's been 10 weeks. So yeah, like 2 months or so. Um, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. And it's, again, it's really timely that it would happen in October because October in general is a very spooky time because of Halloween. Um, and I've talked about it before that again, I find it super interesting with how Halloween is celebrated and perceived versus how Day of the Dead is celebrated and perceived, because those are the two that I personally am aware of and celebrate. And I know that there's others. I know that there's parts that actually observe like All Hallows Eve, etc. Um, but like the difference between Halloween being for like scary, spooky things and ghosts and monsters, etc., versus Day of the Dead being kind of a celebration of there being another realm, of there being like another version of the afterlife, and like willingly inviting spirits to come back and like hang is insane. Because all of the like horror movies and stuff that you see around Halloween that are of people trying to talk to the dead or bring someone back to life tend to end badly, right? Like it's usually like a ghost or like a demon, or it's like possession and murder and like unresolved issues. And then Day of the Dead is like, ah, yes, I would like to hang out with my great great grandmother. And it's not like, even with Day of the Dead, that's not like a super like personal like thing either. Like I'm aware of it. I enjoy the concept of it, but I personally have never set up like an altar for a lost loved one. Like it's just I would prefer to not talk to ghosts if possible. Please and thank you. Like that's not something that I look forward to doing on the daily, right? Like I'm okay with this being it. Like I'll sit here and I'll be like, "Yo, sup, God, what's going on?" But I don't really want to talk to a ghost. Like, why do I draw that line there? Where do others draw that line? Is this like a good icebreaker question, or is this too deep of a conversation? I don't know, but yeah, um, it's it's a very intriguing dynamic, and I want to look into more into other religions and other cultures and other parts of the world, like what their beliefs are, what they do, and why. Because if I'm over here going around in circles around two that I am personally aware of and that I partake in, like I want to know more about other people, about everything and everywhere. But alas, I digress. Um, as our time does draw to a close, though, I do have another song for you as we wind down for the night. And I think it's perfect for this almost midnight, and it is by an artist called Bill Murray. Not to be confused with Bill Murray, the actor. This is Bilmuri, and this song is from his new album called Relaxing Box Fan Sleep Ambient Sounds Number 3. I'm a big fan of this guy because almost all of his songs have bizarre titles that have nothing to do with the lyrics, but they're kind of like a little edgy, a little alt. There's like elements of like electronic music and like rock and like the occasional screaming, but also like very melodic, like chill vibes. I don't know. It's very much like what's trendy right now, but it's also like very dynamic, and I'm obsessed with the sound of like new-ish music. Well, I guess this one is new, but like just I like, again, well, we don't have to go into music talk, but I do like when artists take something that is popular and that is trendy and then kind of like make it their own, and then that's what's successful. Like I like seeing that leap and that change. But as far as I know though, he is stream friendly, so any streamers who like music to play, check out Bill Murray. But without further ado, here is that. All right. That's off. Okay. Thank you so much for hanging out. Hi, Beanie. Abby, why would you set him up for this joke? I can't believe you. Leo, I know you were waiting for it. Play Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell. uh, Thank you guys so much for hanging out. It's been really fun to be back in the studio. Again, it's super weird to be just sitting here talking to myself, but I am having a blast. This is going to be so much more fun with guests. Very excited. Also, thank you, Liz, for the follow. Welcome to Twitch. Thank you, Crow, for the follow. I missed that one about an hour ago. Doing the podcast here with not having a guest is weird because like I see the chat and like I always want to respond, but I'm also like, dang, I don't know how much like I can or should say like on the radio station because what if it's like some grandmother like just trying to listen to the radio to fall asleep and I'm over here like, yo, thank you so much for the sub, dude. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Um, yes, that. Uh, she totally meant to. Hope you're good, Josh. How are you enjoying tour? Has it gotten the best of you yet? Or are you still vibing? Um, Also, Christ Tammy, thanks, but also screw you, dude. Dude, I've been trying to not say like dude or bro or like those types of words so much when I'm like podcasting, even with guests. Like you'll notice if you pay attention, like through these conversations, I'm gonna try to be more like professional, etc. So I can have like different versions of the me that I like to present. So like if somebody's like, "Oh yeah, send me your stuff," I can send them like stuff so that they know that there's there's a range. I can speak like a frat boy, but I can also have like a serious conversation. Tour good, me tired. Dang, poor thing. Please don't change. I don't gotta change. I just gotta make sure that people know that I can be a different version of me if they need me to. I want to play another song by Bill Murray. Like this is a blast. And also like it's almost at the end of the show. I don't really want to have to ramble for another 5 or so minutes. Can y'all hear it? Yeah. Which one? Oh, I'm gonna play Level 99. Or should I play Cowboy? Hello, James. Welcome here. Dude, I'm obsessed with this album. I've had this album on repeat. Like when I haven't had anything to listen to, this is what I've been listening to. Like on Spotify, I have like my liked songs in general, and then I'll listen to like a certain like song radio or like general like playlist radio because I like hearing new music. But I also have like my like the on repeat playlist is never really specifically accurate because there will be times when I just like look something up and I like listen to it a lot because I'm like trying to like play it like uh play along to it or something because like I said I like to hang out in the studio and like play drums or piano or guitar or something. But masked up, yeah, back in the studio, so masks are still required. Um but yeah. Oh, I wish Amen was here. These are the ones that she sent me because she's mad that I just be wearing bandanas instead of actual cloth masks. uh, Dang, I can't believe Hammy Claus just overlooked Abby. I guess Abby got Cole instead, huh? Poor thing. Actually, that would have made sense because Hammy's a minor, huh? What was I saying? Ah, yes. So I have like my own playlist of like what I currently am in the mood to listen to, and so like this is on there, and I'll start with the playlist, and it'll be like either songs that just came out or songs that I just discovered or songs that have been stuck in my head. But every now and then, like as I'm listening to stuff, I'll just like just right click right on over to Bill Murray and just listen to it. Sag over there. Wasn't that a fantastic pun? Is it a pun? I think it was more of a pun like joke. But yes. Uh all right. I gotta sign off after this song, I think, for here. Thank you, James, for the gifted sub to Abby. Welcome to the sub gang, Abby. Now you can use my three very unrelated emotes. The turtle heart has got to be my favorite. He's so cute. I want to get stickers made of him. He's adorable. But the evil moon also has my heart because I blame the moon for everything. Like I would love to stand the moon, right? Because I see all those memes that are like, ah yes, the moon is lovely and beautiful. The moon is too powerful, bro. I don't trust the moon. Like that thing controls the tides and it's not even on this planet. What's up with that? I've gone on a whole podcast rant about the moon before, haven't I? If not in the podcast, it was definitely when I was designing the emote, but you've definitely heard my rants about the moon. I'll continue ranting about the moon. Not paying attention, New World is taken over. Dude, that's all I've seen anyone play. It's been entertaining to watch, but it's a lot. Because it's not a game that I am playing or that I play, so I'm just like, dang. The moon is too powerful, Ivana. The moon is way too powerful. Put that in quotes. I stand by what I said. Level 52. About to max out? Dude, you've been grinding, huh? I saw you were streaming the other day for like over like for basically for the majority of the day. Can you go pro in New World? You should try to go pro in New World since you've given up on Valorant. Alright. 20 seconds, then I'll sign off here, and then I'll sign off there. Y'all really gonna put me on blast about the moon? I still stand by what I said. That was Bill Murray. Once again, very, very good music, very good album. Give it a listen to. It's available on all of your favorite platforms. But as our time here draws to a close, once again, I would like to thank you for hanging out with me on this fine Sunday evening as the weekend ends and the new week begins. Uh, I'm so excited that I can finally say, tune in next week for new nonsense and new guests. I'm very excited, as I mentioned. It's gonna be a fun little season, all right? It's gonna take some getting used to being back in the studio, but yeah, please keep hanging out, listening to WECS 90.1 FM. This has been Podcast with a K, and I'm your host, Karla with a K, signing off. I will see y'all next week.